Hey.
You know, it's funny, whenever I do these collectives, it's always the drummer that comes in very, very last. So you're not last.
Hey. Defying expectations.
Well, it's because you got the rhythm. Everybody's waiting for the rhythm. If they don't have the downbeat, what are you going to do?
Y'all are screwed. Y'all are screwed without me.
That's so real.
I
There'd be no
remember
record.
I remember interviewing, I can't remember his name, but he was a Latin jazz legend. And he told me a story about how when Miles Davis would create a band, he would start with the drummer and then he would work everything around the drummer. And I had no idea. I mean, not that I
Hmm.
assumed anything, be it a trumpet player, but I just did not take Miles as that being the central focus of what he was doing when he was assembling a band,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, of course. He took all of Jackie McLean's drummers.
Yeah,
Jackie McLean had Tony Williams first, and
that's it.
then Miles Davis took Tony from Jackie's band, you know, offered him more bread.
That's what Miles did best, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, just for the sake of time, and there's so many voices here to toggle through, when the fifth Beatle comes in, we'll interject it. We'll be in good shape.
Um,
Sure.
yeah.
I didn't mean it like that. Anytime I can say the fifth and the Beatle can come together, it makes sense. So, but but
I do it.
at any rate, thank you all so much. Are you all in Chicago? Where are you guys at?
I am close to Chicago. I'm in Sycamore, about an hour west.
Okay.
Yeah, right now I'm actually in California, so
Okay.
it's a little bit earlier for me.
About
Okay.
about an hour west.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
right. Little John. So, well, cool. Well, it's great to meet you. And just so we can keep everything straight, if everybody can introduce themselves and their instrument real quick, that'd be great.
My name is Arman Sangalang, and I play tenor saxophone in the group.
My name is Austyn Menk. I'm the pianist of Iris.
My name is Morgan Turner, and I play bass in Iris.
And my name is Paul Barrilles, and I play drums and cymbals in Iris.
Okay. So, Iris, thank you very much for coming together as a collective. I've really enjoyed this album. Shifting Paradigm always does a really good job of putting together a lot of stellar modern jazz, and I'm always appreciative of it. So it's great to catch up with you. And what I would like to do to begin this conversation is kind of get an idea of how this band came together.
Yeah, for sure. So, this kind of came together around like my second year of grad school, and I was looking to apply for this Jazz Aspen Snowmass Academy. That's like kind of sponsored by the Frost School of Music. And I've been wanting to put together a group of people, a group of musicians from school that I really wanted to play with for a while. And it just kind of felt like the best opportunity to um, kind of form the group. So I had talked with Kirby Fellis, the trombone player, and we were thinking about who else we would like to play with, and it just kind of snowballed into this. And then afterwards, we had got accepted, which we were not really expecting to. We just kind of like we're just like throwing darts at the board and just seeing if it was going to work. And like that 2 week camp was just honestly very eye-opening and super inspiring. Like all the faculty and all the other students that were at the camp, there were three other groups from around the country that were also there. And it was just super inspiring. And so when we got back to Chicago, we were like, okay, I think there's something here. And like, I think we should keep going with it. And like, from there, we just kind of started building our repertoire and kind of moved on from there. Yeah.
Cool. So talk to me about how this album feels. Kind of with this big of a collective, how did you kind of artistically put this album together?
That's an excellent question. As Arman mentioned, since the beginning of Iris, something that we knew that we had immediately was a lot of individual voices, each of which had unique stories to tell, that oftentimes would come about in a story that were similar, perhaps in regard to a life event that had happened to one of us, that another person shared something similar in. But not only that similarity, in addition to that, there was always an element of uniqueness about certain tunes that we had written all by ourselves. With those combination of elements coming together, the similar, the shared experience, and the unique experiences that each of us individually had, we knew that the tunes that we would put on this first record would be a conglomerate of those things. Most of the record is thus original music, without necessarily having a true central theme, but instead that central theme being Iris's identity and that conglomerate that I mentioned. It's been a wonderful experiment, and I think that over time, with each and every engagement, whether or not it's a tour or an isolated gig, we've been fortunate enough to grow in that identity and continue to solidify, this is the kind of music that we want to make. This is the story that I want to tell, as individuals. And of course, as a collective, thinking the same thing from the perspective of we. We want to make this music. We want to share this story.
So we just got Kirby in. Kirby, what's up?
Sorry about that. One of my colleagues called in sick. I had to cover their class. I'm very sorry.
No, you're fine. When I said, "Hey, what's up?" your avatar came up, and I thought you were like, "No, I'm out. I'm not doing this. I'm getting out. I don't want to be around these people. I'm done."
No, I love these cats.
No, I know you do. I know you do. So, if you could just, I had everybody introduce themselves. If you can introduce yourself and your instrument, just for context for the crowd.
I am Kirby Fellis. I am the trombonist.
All right, I love the trombone. So, I want to know, how does this band work? We've kind of, Kirby just kind of, I kind of was talking about the beginnings of the band, putting this album together, but it's a conversation when you get together. I mean, it's a bigger conversation when you have all the different voices, but why does this band work so well together?
I think, man, that's a heavy question. I think this band works so well because before we played together as an ensemble, just about all of us were already pretty good friends. Arman and I shared an office in grad school. Morgan was the bass player for one of the ensembles I directed. Austyn was I think Morgan was bass player for two ensembles I directed. Austyn was the piano player, but they also were already my good friends. Anyone that's willing to play with a trombone player is doing, God's work already. So I was happy. But I think the ensemble works because, we genuinely like each other. And usually when we have an issue, we can tell each other. And I think the honesty, especially in this day and age, is a huge part of why it works. I've had times where Arman's like, man, we're cutting this off on one and you're hanging it over, and in professional environments, some cats are like, well, how dare he? But I'm just like, yeah, he's right. I'm doing that. Or there are times where I'll tell Arman, man, I don't really like our blend on this note. And he's like, well, do you think I need to come out more, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a level of honesty, which sometimes, I'm not going to say it gets heated, but, we'll just be telling the truth. But it's a fun time, and I think that when there's an honesty in music, there's an integrity that you really can't get any other way.
So, yeah, I think if you stay away from being a band like the Police, you'll be okay. There's got to be honest banter, but you don't want to kill each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So ultimately with this album, just kind of going down the line here, what are you hoping the listener gets from this?
I hope the listener gets one that every individual voice can exist in a conglomerate. I think that we did a fantastic job of, not diminishing our individual lights as musicians, but one, elevating it for the group, but also putting together a really nice, culmination of like, this is who we are. This is what we have to say. And we feel like in this environment, in this day and age, is extremely prevalent. And I think as long as the listener hears that, I think we did our job,
What do you think, Morgan?
I would agree with that. I think especially, kind of like with what Kirby was saying, it really is, I think, a good demonstration of like our voice as a unit, but it still allows each, individual to shine, whether it be like through composition or, solos, etc. I think I don't know. I hope that I hope that listeners are able to hear kind of that uniqueness, but also kind of hear that we're all, like we were saying, like we're all good friends. I hope that, kind of connection comes across through the music, that we all, are buddies.
So the liner notes were penned by the Chicago icon and guitar legend Bobby Broom. So my question to you is, who have been influences for you in your each of your sounds, and kind of collectively, what has been kind of the jazz shadow, so to speak, that has been a part of the sound that you've gone for and that collectively you've made?
We have a few different influences, and that's been part of what makes this so unique, is the variety of different musicians from which we draw our inspiration. Part of the initial conversation and, in fact, ongoing conversation that I've had to have with other band members myself, which is then reciprocated, is who do you listen to and how can I fit into that? As an example, Arman, I can remember us talking about Walter Smith quite a lot, which is a more contemporary vein of jazz music that I was hip to, but not as deeply as Arman. So in order to reach a consensus as an ensemble, I had to do a little bit of homework, understand, okay, where is this player? Where is Walter Smith III coming from? How can I, as a chordal instrument, fit into that sound? And over time, that has developed and continued to work. Speaking for myself for a moment, though, this group has helped me realize just how much my classical training has influenced the kind of music that I want to write myself. February 4th, the tune on the album has quite a lot of functional harmony. The first two chord progressions, little chord progressions, are both a super standard dominant to tonic relationship. You have a 5-chord going to a 1-chord in 2 different instances, 2 different key centers. That's just a sound that I've come to appreciate through classical training, and the fact that that can coexist with more contemporary jazz in the vein of Walter Smith, with the hard bop influences that I know Kirby and I are akin to, and everything else, whether it's Charlie Hayden's bass playing, which I know Morgan is a fan of, or any one of the drummers that Paul has dove into, it comes together and it works very well, which is a borderline miracle in many instances, but also a beautiful, beautiful thing that can create a cohesive product.
I would also jump in and say that some of the tunes that we put on the record, they're mostly originals, and I think as a band we've kind of identified with almost like one foot in the past and one foot in the present, where we're appreciating both aspects of jazz performance that's prevalent today. So a lot of the original compositions that are on the record are kind of indicative of a lot of our modern influences. Exactly, people like Walter Smith III, people like Mulgrew Miller, luminaries like that. But we also, have a deep, profound appreciation for what has come before us and all of the time and study that we have put into this craft that we call jazz music. So, I think that's one of the reasons why we put tunes like Sunny Side of the Street on the recording. We're deeply influenced also by Dizzy Gillespie, and especially that recording of Sunny Side on the Street on Sunny Side Up with Sonny Stitt, Sonny Rollins. We're also deeply influenced by contemporaries like Branford Marsalis. He has a take on Sunny Side of the Street that we really love and appreciate. So you can hear some of that on the record as well, or our take on that. And also luminaries like Roy Hargrove. The Challenge is also on the record, so we wanted to kind of put our stamp or our take on that composition as well.
So in the vein of old school Twitter, if I was to, you all came to Kansas City to do a show at one of our places, say like, the Green Lady or the Black Dolphin, and you had to come up with a way to convince people in Kansas City to see you live. And you had to come up with kind of a Twitter length description of either your show or you guys and your vibe. How would you guys do that? How would you craft that?
I'm going to need a second to think.
It's like we got Scrabble tiles on here. We got to get everything matched up.
I do know what we're aiming towards. The little blurb, so to speak, that we've kind of stuck to throughout our time solidifying our mission statement as a collective is something along the lines of Iris is a collective of individuals, each with a unique voice, whom aim to combine a modern aesthetic with the tradition of hard bop, post bop, and other historic subgenres of jazz music. I feel as though through our composition, through our playing, and through the discipline of having intensely studied this art for the period of time that each of us has, I feel like we've been successful in that thus far. And the fact that that success has occurred after just a couple short years makes me excited for what will continue to develop in each of our playing as individuals, but in this scenario specifically as a collective. But that little sentence, that was probably a run-on sentence. I do that sometimes.
That's fine.
But a sentence nonetheless sums up most everything that we are about. And that is something that we've had to, we've toiled over that for many an hour as a collective, trying to refine and summarize what it is to each of us that is important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I didn't know if anybody wanted to chime in or if we were going to rest on that, because that's great. That's a wonderful description.
For me, I think it's almost simple as, a modern approach to American classics through our eyes. I think that we're not just playing tunes that are classics, but we're playing a very classical concept to this country. I think the beauty of America is that we have a democratic approach to a lot of things, or at least we're supposed to. And, when we talk about this music, as a collective, we often discussed, hey, well, if I'm feeling like we're playing this in this vein, what would it sound like with this here? So it forces us to be aware and informed of where we come from as musicians and as individuals and what we can bring to the table. So if I had to put it together, I'd say, yeah, like a modern approach or a modern picture of an American classical concept. What do we bring to the table from this country's music? Because jazz is this country's original music. And in the depth of all of that, we have to find out, what do we have to say, in a history. When you look at the music that's already been created, there's so much good music and such a diverse, tapestry of good music. You start to think, well, what do I have to say in all of this? And I think that this album is, almost I wouldn't call it like a coming to age, but our acceptance of this is where we are. This is who we are. And we think that what we have maybe is just as good, or a better way to say it is just as valuable as anything else anyone has to say. That's kind of how I don't know if that would fit on it.
No, what? Yeah, no, that's very well said. So I want to make sure that we get to the good business. If anyone wants to pick up the album, if anyone wants to see you live, find out more about you guys, what's the best way to do that?
We have an Instagram page, just at Iris Quintet, and then you can find the record on Bandcamp through Shifting Paradigm Records. We also have a couple of release shows in the Midwest, so if you're in the area, you can grab a physical copy there too.
And we've already sold the live show, so if you need to come to Kansas City, you can cross that off your list. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for opening up. I just wanted to kind of get a good introduction, a good idea of who you are and what you are, the inverted pyramid. So thank you for taking a minute out today. And I think I usually wait, but I've really enjoyed the album. I think I've already played you on the show. And if I have, you'll just get played on there again, because I always like to highlight the interviews, so it's a good thing. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the music.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Hey, jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.